everyone. Welcome to this launch of Rebel Girls. It's absolutely thrilling to be here to do this and to have so many of you here for the launch of this fabulous book. So just to begin with, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the wisdom of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their custodianship of the lands and waterways. The countries on which Spinifex offices are situated are Jiru, Bunurong and Wurundjeri, Warrawarong, Gundungurra and Noongar. We also acknowledge the many women throughout history who have fought for women's freedom and the freedom of lesbians, often at the cost of their lives. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. Please mute yourselves while the launch is actually taking place, because if there's any external noise, it disrupts things. There might be time later for some short comments or questions, but as we have 3 speakers this evening, that's Australian time, I'm not sure. The launch is being recorded and the recording runs for roughly 1 hour. Afterwards, it will be loaded onto the Spinifex YouTube channel and should be available by tomorrow, Australian times. So I'm introducing all of the speakers just before each of you speak for 10 to 12 minutes, and I hope I won't need to cut you off. So I'm just going to introduce Sybilla, but before I introduce Sybilla, I'll also mention Reist Alvarez, who's the photographer for the book and whose dog you may have seen just a little while ago. Her passion is turning the attacks on women's rights into topics of discussion for her daughter and for all daughters. But Sybilla is the editor of the book. Sybilla Claus is a journalist and anthropologist. She lives in Holland, alternatively called the Netherlands, with a capital T. Sybilla has worked as a bus driver and self-defense instructor. She was on the staff of 2 big Dutch newspapers for 30 years. Her previous book was about the unknown dead people of Amsterdam and the lesbian cold case detective who tries to give them back their identity. Sybilla never fitted into the box that was made for her. A proper rebel doesn't need boxes anyway. Both Sybilla and Reist love dogs. That's the most important thing, don't you reckon? So, Sybilla, over to you.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome to everybody. I'm so excited that we are now going international because, we started in Holland. Why did I write the book is, of course, question 1. Well, it's because my friend Marianne told me to. We, the group of feminists of my age, 60 plus, we were worrying for quite some time. Why are the young girls doing so feeling not well? In every survey, they state that they feel depressed, they are lonely, they self-harm, many think about suicide. What is going on? It's always hard to be teenager. We had that too. But I think the big difference is in our time, we also were insecure about gender roles and what to do in life. We had the women's movement. And the women's movement saved us and made us really strong and self-confident. But now this is the era of the ego. So the girls, we feel they are out there all alone. So we decided, she asked me to do the book with Irache, and that was all I needed. And ever since, this is like almost 3 years, 2.5 years ago, I've been working so hard on this project because it became a project. Okay, first we started with the Dutch book. We needed to do this puzzle. Why are they feeling so bad? What is happening? So we spoke to a lot of experts, but also to young girls and young women themselves, of course. Um, well, in the book we have several parts, and it's about, of course, about gender ideology. It's about Islam, of course. It's about social media, because this is where girls spend lots of time, more so than boys, and left-leaning girls the most, and this correlates with feeling bad. Um, Okay, what I see around me, and probably you as well, is what a girl is now, a young woman, is a very uniform image. You gotta be beautiful with beautiful teeth, long hair. You gotta be skinny, wear jeans, and the latest kind of jeans. Uh, so if you are gender non-conforming, if you fit in this, it's quite fine. You still have a lot of problems, of course, but if you don't fit in this image, this narrow image, you are going to be in trouble. You will see in the book we have pictures of maybe like 10 girls. None of them has short hair. We couldn't find it. I tried really hard. I spoke to a few, and they said, well, we're queer. We're not going to join this book in the end, you know? And I found one. She had the cutest haircut, really short. When she was really young, she was loving soccer, and she would just went to the hairdresser and said, give me that crew cut. And of course, I asked her at a certain point, I asked her, are you maybe, do you like girls? Yes, she's a lesbian. She never had a girlfriend. But what happened from the day she went to primary school with that short haircut? She was bullied relentlessly every day. The girls were so mean. They said, you are not a girl. You are not one of us. So she told me this sad story, and I wrote it down, and then the mother stepped in because she was still only 17. So for all the minors, we had to ask permission from the parents. And the mother said, no, no way. Because I could only respect that, but I understood because the mother and the father and the family had lived, everybody had lived through this bullying, right? So that's what can happen. You know how the story goes, right? This is how you can end up thinking maybe I'm a man, or maybe let me escape all this bullying and sexism. Well, what the girls mentioned that also really shocked me is that even in primary school, the body shaming starts, the sexism starts. Here in Holland, girls are called whores. They are I have one of the youngest girls in the book is my special friend, so I knew the story well. She was shamed for everything: her butt, her breasts. Even maybe the breasts are too small, maybe the breasts are too big. The boys, I don't know where they take the ride, but they talk to this so denigrating. So you call them whores. They talk about their body hair. Even if you have just little hairs on your arms, they would say that's not good. You look like a man. So she felt so insecure, and she's sitting at home crying. So Susan asked me, what do these girls come up with as resistance? How do they survive all this? And I must say, all the girls and young women, they showed so much perseverance is a difficult word for me, perseverance. So that I think that's what matter. I didn't pick them for it, but it stood out. And I think this really matters, how you live your life. When you have a setback, we all have setbacks, but do you stay down or do you get back up? All these girls have a plan. They want to study. They understand that you need to have a job and be independent. Uh, you can also, like one was like, I ignore these stupid remarks and stupid people. They know you need to look for good friends and be less online, even though, that's just also what they know I want to hear that, right? So that's very hard for them. And like it is for me to be less online. The older ones, one migrated from Taiwan to Amsterdam and was totally happy with the freedom we have here as women. And another one, she quit her job in the army to start her own company, which is walking with women in the mountains in Austria. So if you ever go to Austria, find that woman. Yeah, so then we had this Dutch book, which is this one. And so beautiful. Design is beautiful. The pictures, Irache, I love you. Look at the beautiful pictures. But then and we got a lot of publicity, mainly from the right-wing media, YouTube channels, and so on. We're totally ignored by the left-wing media. But still, I thought the content is so good, and it's it's also, if you're in the US or in Spain, I think many things are the same for girls. So we thought these interviews about why did a tomboy go, or how is the inner life of teenage girls, how hard is it to get your breasts, and the brain needs time to get used to your body changing. But before your own brain is used to it, other people start judging you. So this gives them girls a real disconnect. So this is how the book starts, with an interview, also the English book, with an interview with this psychologist explaining us all the teenage problems. And I thought, we need to go international. And then a German woman out of nowhere came up, and she speaks Dutch. She said, we need this book in German. So all these things started developing, and so we went looking for publishers. So in October we will have the German book, totally different title, different content. Oh, this is maybe nice to know. The English version has 20 brand new stories, because because it's international, I had to skip a lot of the Dutch stories. And we went to, not we, Binja, who the first year I worked a lot with Mariana, and the second year Binja came out of nowhere at exactly the right time. And within a few weeks, she became the head of translations. And she also arranged the interview with girls in Afghanistan following illegal education. It's a very moving story. So we have different stories about Islam and forced marriage and honor killings. But also I spent quite some time in Taiwan, and I was really anxious to talk to women there, because it's a system formed by Confucius thinking, where the son is king. So every woman living there is really a different kind of misogyny, going really deep. So we also have a story about 30 million abortions on female fetuses in China. And this not, and there I got a lot of help from Vivian Kuo, because she knows everything about this region and kept explaining it to me. And you will see her in the book. So the international book, I was so much fun to work with new people, but also with this intergenerational, because they're a lot younger. Binya's younger, and then Vivian's even younger. And intercultural team. I think that, and it's even the women in that area are really happy to reach out to us, because they are dealing with this very special kind of misogyny, but also the gender identity ideology is dumped on them, even though the total population doesn't want it. It's like here in Europe, it comes from Brussels, it's come from the government, so much money is behind it. So they struggle with these two women unfriendly ideologies, and they're really looking out for help.
Sybilla, we're about to run out of time.
Okay, it's good, because can I just say one last sentence? I actually done. I thanked everybody. But now my dream is to continue, of course, right? Because we have an interview with a Spanish mom of transitioned kids. And my dream is to now have a Spanish version. So we have the core with the stories, and then we we make extra stories like we did with the German one, with German feminists and German issues Okay, thank you, Susan.
Okay, thank you very much. So our next speaker is Bev Jackson. She writes about herself. Lesbians have always had to fight for their rights and visibility, even within the women's and gay movements in the 1970s and 1980s. Today, lesbians are under attack from LGBTQ plus, well, really GBTQ plus organisations that preach inclusion, which means including straight men who self-define as lesbians. How are young lesbians faring? Asks Bev Jackson, and she is the co-founder of LGB Alliance. So, Bev, to you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to mention that my other co-founder, Catherine Harris, is on the call. And I'd like to begin by paying tribute to Sybilla, who is a real force of nature. It is astonishing what she has achieved. And I really hope that everybody realizes how extraordinary it is. And this book is going to really make waves internationally, as it should. Now, I was born in the UK and I came out as a lesbian when I was 15 in 1966. And all I had really as context was the miserable book, The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. That wasn't a very cheering kind of background. But then in 1969, I moved to London, and there everything changed. First of all, through the Citizens Advice Bureau, I was introduced to a funny little group called Kenrick. That's Kenrick for Kensington and Richmond. That's where it was. And it was a sweet little group organised by a couple who had the pseudonyms, I think, Cynthia and Julie. And Cynthia and Julie served us tea and biscuits in their living room. And that was my first experience of other lesbians. And it was that was very heartening, and it was much better than the Well of Loneliness. And Cynthia and Julie also took me off to the Gateways nightclub. And that made a huge impression on me. I mean, I've forgotten so many things, but I will never forget going into the Gateways Club and saying to Cynthia, "Why are there so many men here?" And they laughed because there weren't any men at all. But Gateways was very much a butch and femme club, and there were so many butch dykes around in their suits and ties, and I was completely discombobulated. I'd never seen anything like it. But this was the kind of culture that we had. So, and there were other nightclubs, but Gateways is the longest running of all. And it was so important, a place for lesbians to meet. I never forget Smithy on the door saying, shouting to someone, I've no idea why, "I'm a bigger lesbian than you are any day." I have no idea what she meant. But anyway, it never left it was ingrained in my memory. Anyway, so there was a lesbian community, and most notably of all, maybe internationally, was the Michigan Women's Music Festival, which was largely lesbian, and which managed to persist for many decades. But meanwhile, between 1980 and say 2010, 2015 is a watershed mark. But anyway, gradually all these lesbian organizations and groups disappeared. They disappeared under the influence of queer theory and the money that was pouring in to make all groups and all organizations inclusive. This word inclusive, I want to dwell on language just for a minute. Inclusive is one of these terrible words that is being imported, which sounds so nice. Let's include everybody. We should include everybody. Let's all be inclusive. And it has done so much harm, I think perhaps more harm than almost any other of the linguistic tricks that have been imposed on us. Lesbians are not inclusive. We do not include men in our sex lives. And it is outrageous to suggest that we do or we should. But this is what happened over the decades from the 1980s onwards. All the so-called LGB groups became LGBTQ plus, or Two-Spirit, whatnot. They gradually got more and more letters, and they all changed the language that they used. So, and most importantly, of course, for us was that they changed the meaning of sexual orientation. So instead of saying that a lesbian is or lesbians and gays are people who are attracted to people of the same sex, they said from the 1980s onwards, they're attracted to people of the same gender. And gender being this mystical thing, this posed inequality. And this unhinged the whole of women's rights and lesbian rights in particular. It just sort of sent it off spinning into space. And those of you who have read Kathleen Stock's book, Material Girls, she gives a very good description in the first chapter of the different ways in which this word gender is used. Now, I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I moved to the Netherlands when I was 19. And in 1990, we were told, yeah, stop saying sex. You should say gender now. You shouldn't say talk about the differences between the sexes, but differences between the genders only. And I just said, we all said at the translation department, oh, okay, gender, yeah, because sex, people think of sexual intercourse, that's fine. So we all started saying gender. We didn't have any notion that there was anything political behind this or that this would had any deeper significance. But all this co-opting of language, this trying to force people into accepting different definitions of language has been a terrible blow for women's rights and in particular for lesbians. Now, the word lesbian always had, the fact that lesbians exclude men is the source of the scorn that has always been directed at lesbians, but also the titillation. Lesbian has always been a popular term in pornography. And in the 1970s, men would say, well, what do you do? They would think that was terribly amusing. Or they would say, oh, I feel like a lesbian inside. There was this titillating element. And that has spiraled out of all proportion under the influence of the growth of pornography, online pornography. Lesbian is still one of the most, if not the most popular term in pornography. And that has had a devastating effect on young lesbians. One young lesbian in the west of the United States told me that at her high school, nobody, no woman, no girl who was attracted to other girls would want to be called lesbian because that was a smutty word. No, so that is why they call themselves non-binary or they call themselves queer or some other word because the word lesbian had become tainted in their minds. And also another terrible thing, which a result of this, which is that many, many young lesbians in the United States in particular are microdosing on testosterone. And this is all bound up with this escape from lesbianism. So that we lost gateways in 1985. And the Michigan Music Festival hung on for a couple of more decades and finally closed down in 2015 under influence of the pressure to be inclusive. 2015 was a very important year in the United Kingdom as well, because although all the LGBT organizations in the United States had gone queer and become TQ plus and what have you in the 1990s, from about 1997 onwards, the UK had held out at Stonewall, which is this massive organization in the UK and had been a force for good. For decades, it had fought against homophobia. It had helped to secure gay and lesbian marriage, and it had a very high status in the UK. It was thought it was the go-to body if you want to know about equal rights for gays and lesbians. You go to Stonewall, and they set up training courses. They trained public and private sector organizations all around the country, the civil service, the NHS, people who educators at schools and universities everywhere, and they became more and more respected. This pillar of society, with at one point 150 employees and a budget of I don't know, 8 million or more. Kate Harris will tell me if I got that wrong. Anyway, but by the time of 2015, the pressure to become inclusive, to switch, to go along with the American drive, to become LGBTQ plus instead of just plain old LGB was becoming very strong. And that's why when they needed a new CEO in 2014, several lesbian groups and individuals interviewed the prospective CEO, Ruth Hunt, and said to her, "You're not going to do this, are you? You're not going to turn Stonewall into an LGBT organization, are you? You're going to keep it LGB." And she promised all these lesbians faithfully that she would not do that. Once she was installed, she completely reneged on that promise. In fact, she prioritized the gender identity and the so-called trans rights movement. I don't think trans rights is the right term, and I don't use it personally because these are not rights, these are demands. They're demands made on other people to accept all these language changes and all these changes in society. So I don't think it's about rights at all. It's about basically it's about social engineering. They're engaged in social engineering, and we're all supposed to just accept it. Well, so Kate Harris and I didn't accept it. We met in 2019, and we thought, well, look, Stonewall really has to understand that in promoting this ridiculous notion that men who identify as women can call themselves lesbians. I mean, let's just bear in mind how ridiculous that is, right? So two men who each define themselves as women and set up home together can be and do call themselves a lesbian couple. For God's sake, we cannot, we will not, we will never accept this. And so we approached Stonewall differently, and then after we met, we approached them together, and we tried to get them into dialogue. They would not talk to us. No debate. It was as if we were racists trying to promote some hideous bigoted view, and they would not talk to us because we were disgusting individuals. We were not inclusive. So in 2019, we decided that there was nothing for it. We would have to revive the gay and lesbian rights movement because it had completely been lost. And so we became, on the 22nd of October 2019, the first organization in the world to set up again as an LGB organization. We decided to make it LGB and not just lesbian only because if this was about sexual orientation, it's about the redefinition of what's a sexual orientation, and that applies to men as well. Now, the gay men were not very on side at the beginning. It took a long time before gay men gradually came on side, except for amazing men like Malcolm Clark, who was with us from the start. But most gay men were against us and still are, unfortunately. I think you could say that the majority of gay men are still. First of all, we've been through two court cases. One court case in which Kate Harris had to defend what lesbian meant because she was actually interrogated on the stand as to whether men could not be lesbians, and she had to defend that. And in fact, she burst into tears at the most dramatic moment in that trial, having to defend what lesbian meant. Secondly, we, as the lesbian interveners, played a key role in the Supreme Court ruling, which established the meaning of sex and woman in the Equality Act, and that has been an enormous achievement. Also, we've got lots and lots of young people joining now, and finally we've got, in addition to all our conferences and our responses to consultations, we also have now, we launched last year LGB International, and there is of course an LGB Alliance Australia as well. And just to a final note, we have achieved more in the UK than in any other country, I think it's fair to say. But we have an incoming Prime Minister, so probably soon, Andy Burnham, who is good friends with Stephen Whittle. Stephen Whittle, you may recall, is a woman who couldn't bear to be a lesbian. And so we're not terribly optimistic about the new PM. But I can tell you that Kenrick, that little group that I went to in 1969 and which went inclusive in the 1980s, has now, just in the last few weeks, had a meeting and decided it is going back to be female only. And so small steps forwards, but we have a long way to go. Fight the changes in language. Don't, and speak out, please dare to speak out and do not accept the redefinition of our language and our lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bev. I thoroughly agree with you. So our next speaker is Melinda Tankard Reist. She is an Australian expert on the global pornography industry and director of Collective Shout, which is an organisation campaigning against sexploitation. She explains the effect of online big porn on children and its role in fueling harmful sexual behaviours towards children. And Melinda is the editor of many books that Spinifex has published. So it's a great pleasure, Melinda, to welcome you here tonight.
Susan, it's my pleasure to be here with you all, to be with a number of other Spinifex authors. You'll see some of your titles there behind me. I want to make my publishers happy, so you've got a whole nice lineup there, and it's always good when you're doing media interviews to be able to promote Spinifex. So thanks for the opportunity. Sybilla, congratulations on the book. Rebel Girls, we need more rebel girls, that's for sure. And one of my purposes when I go into schools is to help create more rebel girls who say no to porn culture, no to sexualization and objectification, no to violence, no to sexual harassment, no to toxic cultural messages about how they should act and look and be as women in the world. So I really loved the title. That appealed to me a lot. It resonated with me. So I've been going into schools for quite some years, more than a decade, and the stories that girls tell me are getting worse, and they're getting worse younger. The stories girls used to tell me in senior secondary school, they're now telling me in primary schools. Some of the worst stories that I'm hearing now are from girls who are 8, 9, 10 years old. They're all living in a world that porn has made. The porn industry is the largest department of education in the world, and it is propagandizing, especially boys, indoctrinating boys into very callous versions of masculinity, grooming them into sexual entitlement, into an idea that to be male is about conquest, it's about domination, it's about cruelty, and they're having the empathy knocked out of them by the pornification of the world that they're all growing up in. They're seeing show reels of abuse every day. They're learning about degradation, about humiliation and abuse as merely entertainment. They're imbibing the eroticization of dominance and harassment and abuse. Sexist culture is grooming sexist boys. We're seeing it play out in our schools in a rise in harmful sexual behaviors, problematic sexual behaviors, peer-on-peer sexual assault at rates never before seen. In Australia, adolescent males are now committing the highest rates of sexual offending. That's boys between 14 and 19 years of age. If that's not bad enough, adolescent males are now in the largest cohort of sexual offending against children. So something has gone terribly wrong in the formation of our young people, and much of it is as a result of the education provided to them by pornography. Girls are learning that they exist as sexual service stations for men and boys are learning that they are entitled to demand whatever they want from women and girls. I want to read you a quote that a young woman shared. She said, "I remember being a kid and scrolling through Pornhub, having the most sickening feelings because I had the same body as the people being ravaged in every video. I was traumatizing myself, and I'll never be the same because of it. Men do not realize the effect this has on girls." And this contributes to body hatred in girls. It contributes to girls trying to make themselves small so that they don't attract unwanted attention. Girls tell me about being routinely touched at school, being groped, being threatened with rape if they don't send nudes. A new iteration of that is girls are telling me now that boys will threaten to rape the girl's mother or sister if she doesn't send nudes. routinely sexually harassed every day. They are sent unsolicited dick pics, and they're subjected to sexual moaning, groaning, grunting noises, which is straight out of porn sets. Boys in primary school, grade 4, 5, and 6, are doing these behaviors. They're imitating what they're hearing the bigger boys do, and they think that's just what you do as a boy. I have girls tell me they're too scared to come to school anymore. They don't want to be at school anymore. There's a new focus on school refusal and absenteeism. And I believe a big factor in this is that schools have become sites of violence and harassment against girls. Why would you want to go to school when you will be touched, groped, sexually moaned at, demanded to send nudes, and experience these daily unwanted sexual intrusions? At Collective Shout, alongside the parenting expert Maggie Dent, we produced a report late in 2024 called The SHOT Report, Sexual Harassment of Teachers. It was really broader than that. It was really about sexual harassment in schools. We like the SHOT acronym, but it's actually broader. And it was based on a survey of 1,000 teachers, and they reported a rise in sexual harassment against them, against female students. They reported porn being shared around the classroom, airdropped on the school bus to whatever kid was on the school bus. They described rape threats against themselves. I met more young female teachers in the last 2 years leaving teaching as a result of being routinely sexually harassed. They said, we didn't become teachers to be subjected to these kind of behaviors. Again, the boys are acting out what they're learning on the female teachers and on the female students. They're learning predatory sexual attitudes, which diminishes their humanity. I remember one teacher telling me that she'd overheard 2 12-year-old boys talking about sex. And one boy asked the second boy, how do you know when you're having sex? And the second boy said, when she starts to cry. This is one of the most tragic stories I've ever heard. But you see, boys expect girls to be hurt, to have mascara dripping down their faces, to be in pain. They think sex equals causing pain to a woman. What a tragedy. What does this mean in terms of the epidemic of global violence against women? It's only going to get worse. We also have now more boys harnessing and weaponizing AI to create sexually explicit deepfakes, synthetic forgeries. I've met girls this has happened to. I've met female teachers this has happened to. Caitlin, my colleague, who's on the call, has written a report called Turning Women into Porn, and she examined over 100 nudifying and undressing apps that will turn any woman and any girl into any porn genre you want. They're available for as little as $2. And we at Collective Shout are running a global campaign to have these nudifying apps banned. They serve no good purpose. Boys are scraping the images of female teachers and students from social media, from school magazines, from like graduation ceremony pictures, special events at the school, and they're becoming self-appointed porn producers. As well, if it's not bad enough already, girls are learning that they are being groomed to become producers of explicit content through their mainstream platforms. So over the last year, I've taken a deep dive into TikTok, and I've tracked the TikTok to OnlyFans pipeline, where girls are groomed to become porn content creators on OnlyFans. This is popularized through something called the Bop House. It's a porn production house in Florida. There's many spin-off houses. All these girls get together in the Bop House. They have fun. They do pranks. They bake cookies. They play with their toys. It's like this digital girly treehouse. But really, they are OnlyFans porn producers. This is presented to girls as aspirational. Selling your body, commodifying yourself, turning yourself into embodied capital is an act of feminist entrepreneurship in the Bop Girl world. They have millions of followers. Girls send in videos to apply to join the Bop House. They all want to be part of this. I've had schoolgirls tell me, I don't need to finish school. I don't need to go to university. I don't need to get a real job. I can just sell myself on OnlyFans. You'll see currently how OnlyFans is being popularized throughout mainstream culture, on Netflix. Multiple so-called documentaries promoting and normalizing and embedding OnlyFans in the mainstream. So Collective Shout, Cease UK, and Katwa are producing a report based on my research on the TikTok to OnlyFans pipeline, which is just normalizing the porn prostitution nexus and sold to girls as aspirational and desirable. I thought I'd just share in closing some quotes that girls shared with me when I asked them. These were year 7 girls in a school in Cairns, and I asked them what did they think about the Bop House, and this is what they said. They said boys are expecting us girls to do it as well, because if they're doing it, why can't it be us? They expect us to be like the Bop House, and it makes us feel unsafe. Boys think if we don't look like that, we're really ugly. They expect us to do the type of things they do. How's this one from a 12-year-old girl? Boys won't be as serious in relationships as they would be before, because instead of being actually involved in a relationship, they think, oh, if I want that, why can't I just look at it instead of putting effort into getting to know someone? They just expect us to be fake. They think it's okay to call other girls sluts and whores. They want us to give what we don't have. Where there is a sign of hope is I also have girls say to me as part of my workshops, I ask, how do you want to be seen? How do you want to be valued in the world? They say, we deserve to be loved. We deserve better than porn. And that just gives me some hope that they recognize their true value and worth, and that they have a right to something better than how they're being treated now. And they have a right to not be treated as just commodities and objects. And so hopefully more and more will become rebel girls against a pornified landscape.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That brings us full circle actually to what Sybilla said at the beginning, that in the Netherlands, girls are called whores. And I'd also like just to mention that among the other books that Melinda has put together are Big Porn Inc., and also He Chose Porn Over Me. And Caitlin, who Melinda mentioned, published a book called Sex Dolls, Robots and Woman Hating. And they're all available from Spinifex, of course. A little bit of promo here. Anyway, so there's enough time for, we've got 5 minutes for some questions, or it'd be better if you put your hand up, because I can't actually see the chat bit for some reason on my computer. So raise your hand if you have a comment or a question. You can tell that we actually could probably go on for a couple of hours here. These are such fabulous speakers. Nobody's got a question. Surely someone has a question. Raise your hand. Use the bar down the bottom where it says react and push on
Susan,
me. Yeah.
until somebody else raised their hand. I'm so happy I met Melinda last year in a meeting of the UN, I think, of Reem Al Salim. And I went right for you because it's so amazing what you've done. I had no clue, because we older people, we don't get all this porn pushed on the smartphone. So, and how much misery can you have on your shoulders, right? But I'm so happy that in Australia, also US, women groups are active against this Pornhub and all these big machines, because we don't understand what it does to girls. So I'm so happy that in this is one of the good examples of the international version that we got you on board. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for saying, Sybilla. I appreciate that very much. Yes. Yes, there are more people rising up. Thankfully, we're in collaboration with a number of global partners. We hope to have the TikTok to OnlyFans report out by the end of the year. We're hoping by October, actually. So keep an eye out for that. Also, if you're interested, there's going to be a big report come out in August. It's going to be launched in Federal Parliament, August the 12th. And it's on the global cyber terror attack that myself and my colleagues at Collective Shout experienced after we got rid of hundreds of rape, incest, sexual torture, and child abuse games off the Steam and itch.io platform. We were subjected to a mass global volumetric cyber terror attack that went for 8 months. Actually hasn't finished. We got more abuse just a couple of weeks ago. And if you're interested, have a look for that report. We'll be promoting it closer to the time. But it's really about the attack on women's organisations and small civil society organisations, and the chill effect on women like ourselves when we speak out in the digital public square, the impact on women, the impact on democracy really, and who has the right to speak, who gets protected in their speech and who gets silenced and denied.
Bev, would you like to say something more?
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yes.
the pressure. It's very difficult when you say to a person who does not think very much about sex and gender that Amnesty International is a force for evil in this area. They think you're mad. I mean, Amnesty International, surely that's a wonderful organization. It's done so much good. And the fact that Amnesty now celebrates men who call themselves lesbians, I think is just truly shocking. And it's not just Amnesty, but it's all human rights organizations all over the world. But I see that Kate Harris has got a question, because she always will have.
Go for it, Kate.
It's actually not a question. It's more of a absolutely horrified by what Melinda said, and also what Sybilla said. I knew every single word of what Bev said already, so that didn't shock or surprise me, obviously. I just really wanted to, it's not a question, it's a thought, that this is all enough to drive us all insane, and to consider, in some cases, killing ourselves, because it's so horrendous. So just a sort of, Melinda, look after yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, Catherine.
And Sybilla, and every single one of us, make sure, because this is very serious.
Well, the solidarity among women really keeps us alive, I think, certainly for me and my colleagues, and to be able to debrief every day with ourselves and with great women around the world. So, thank you to all of you for that, and for your own work and efforts as well. We have to continue. We have to keep going. For every young woman that contacts us and says, your message changed my life. I know I'm allowed to say no. I know I'm allowed to stand up for myself. I know I'm allowed to have boundaries. It's quite radical when girls say, I realized I'm allowed to say no. This shouldn't be, this should be normal, but it's not. It's revolutionary when girls realize this. So that does give me hope, and we have to find those sources of hope. Or you're right, it is too bleak. I mentioned the TikTok to OnlyFans pipeline, which is devastating enough. But in the process of doing that research, I discovered little girls literally being sold on TikTok for a live distant child abuse. So that's turned into another project. Thousands of men gathering on TikTok to share photos and videos and images, and people literally selling little girls right out in the open. This is not even the dark web, and TikTok does nothing about it. So, but I really shouldn't end on that note. I should end on the hope note. There are good things happening in the world. And if I could mention Collective Shout, last year we had a record 42 victories. There's 5 of us. That's it, 5. And we had a record 42 victories against corporations, advertisers, marketers, pornographers, internationally and domestically as well. So I just wanted to mention that little ray of hope also.
You're amazing, Melinda. I'm always amazed that you can keep smiling. Renata, would you like to put your unmute yourself and say some thank yous?
Yes, I will. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm still sort of like thinking about what Melinda just said. Now, I'll start with Melinda. Melinda has been a very, very good friend for many, many years. We've been through quite a few things together. We're both attacked profoundly by everybody around the world, really, like in RU46. And I cannot thank you and Kathleen and all the other women from Collective Shout enough for what you do. It is just horrendous what you have to go through. And that you just keep doing what you're doing and you're not letting yourselves get down. I have nothing but admiration for you. So thank you very much.
That's very
The same
lovely.
is, of course, very,
Thank
very true for Sybilla, who put this book together. And although I have to say that it gave Pauline Hopkins and me many, many, many dark hours, because Sybilla did this whole book not on Word documents like any usual, normal human being will do. She wrote it on pages. And we didn't realize for a long time. And then we did realize when all the page numbers didn't fit. And Pauline and I had various like meltdowns, but we got through it. We made sure that the book was called Rebel Girls and not Gender Rebels, because we did not want any gender in the title, because we, as Sheila Jeffries and many, many other radical feminists, want to get rid of gender. Having said that, I really want to thank Sybilla for your incredible energy. You are a powerhouse, and Rebel Girls is a movement, as you said, and I hope it will go wide and far. And I hope that women listening today will recommend the book to many, many other people. Now, Beth Jackson. Beth, you've been one of my heroines, you and Kate, for putting up LGB and rescuing us from the terrible T. And I know how difficult that has been, and I congratulate you on doing this. And in Australia, of course, we have an LGB group as well. And keep doing it, because we absolutely need it. And it's very bad to hear that this new Prime Minister in the UK, Andy, whatever his name is a friend of Whittle. That is dreadful news. I didn't know that. I mean, Keir Starmer was bad, but maybe he's not much better than the new one. Anyway, thank you so very much for what you're doing. Now, of course, have to thank everybody at Spinifex, because, as I keep saying, a book is a product of many, many, many women working on it. And so on this particular book, Pauline Hopkins and we did most of the editing, and then Susan came on. But all the other Spinifex women, like Rachel, who is here, who does the publicity, Danielle, who's our office manager, and of course Caitlin, who's our social media manager. We're all trying to get the news out into the world, how good and important Rebel Girls is, and how every parent and teacher should get themselves a copy, because they can really use it in their schools against this very dangerous and stupid ideology that, everything is trans and you have to be diverse.
Inclusive.
And I mean, you probably know already, but if you don't, Australia at the moment is probably one of the worst countries to live in. Women, we don't exist. Our Human Rights Commissioner doesn't know what a woman is. Sal Grover has just lost her federal court, but it's going to the High Court. The LAG, the Lesbian Action Group, have to ask for an exemption to meet without the presence of men who claim to be women and claim to be lesbians. Now, if you can think about that, this is a country. We should be able just, to meet with whoever we want to. No, we have to ask for an exemption from the human rights, and so far have not gotten one, if we want to meet without men who claim to be lesbians. It is unbelievable that in 2026 we have to actually talk about this. Now, one other thing that actually Rachel brought to my attention is that we have many women who are here on this Zoom, and you are not really subscribers to our newsletter. That's a great pity, because you're missing out on a lot of things. If you would just go to the Spinifex website, spinifexpress.com.au, On the main page, you find that you can subscribe to our newsletter, which Rachel puts together very efficiently. And you will know all the wonderful events we have coming up, like, for instance, on the 16th of July, for those of you who read novels, we have a very wonderful Zoom launch with Christine Balint for a really, truly gorgeous novel, A Single Witness, about a girl, Anna Maria Bonos, in 18th century Italy, who accused her father of assaulting her, raping her. And she won. Anyway, Spinifex Press publishes the most important, amazing books. But it is also because we have authors like Melinda, who has been a wonderful Spinifex author for so many years, with all your books on sexualization of girls and on the porn industry. And we thank you very much for that. And we just, sometimes I really don't know how you can cope to go on, but I know you go on. And thank you very much for that. And we go on as well. So I, of course, want to thank Susan Hawthorne as well, who goes on. And our dog, who is somewhere not to be seen, but who's also a very important member of our household. So thank you to all of you for coming on this Zoom. Please, please, please spread word about Rebel Girls and what an incredible resource it is for anyone from children to teens to parents to teachers to lesbians to women, and how we just really should just spread the news far beyond Australia and the UK and the USA, anywhere. So thank you very, very much for coming to this launch, and please come to other launches. And thank you incredibly much for all your really hard work. We know you do it. Thank you.
We have half
Thanks, everyone.
We have half a minute left, so I'm just going to mention our cover designer, Deb Snipson, and also our internal book designer, Helen Christie, both of whom do marvellous work in producing our books and making them look really fabulous. In the coming months, we also have another couple of anthologies coming up on the trans juggernaut. So if you sign up to the newsletter, and I've put it in the chat, you'll find out more about them as they come. One is about the situation in Australia and the other is international.
And Sybilla wants to say something.
Okay, Sybilla.
One last line. We should always end positive, right? We are now 70 girls and women contributing to this project. On the website, I call it the project and call for action, join the project. But my last line, I would like to say in front of all of you, Renata, I love you.
Oh, Sybilla, I love you too. I absolutely love you, adore you. You really made me 10. You made me 10 years older, but I still adore you.
No.
Oh, you really were.
Thank you.
And when you go to the website, click on this and send it to your friends.
But there is a special love affair between Sybilla and me. I mean, you should really know about this. Very, very deep love affair between Sybilla and me, despite the lipstick.
Love you. Love all of you.
Love you very much.